Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
I got some problem in the Microsoft team. Abruptly got closed. Anyway, so can you see? So we are talking about salary processing. So when you calculate the gross salary, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have got these components. One is a basic component, one is a DA, one is a bonus. Okay. So bonus is fixed, basic it gets incremented, but DA it is announced maybe twice in a year or thrice in a year, like this. So these are the components of the salary. So now if I would like to calculate the gross salary of a particular employee, so the simple rule is the gross is equal to basic plus basic into DA by 100, because DA is the percentage, so maybe 2% or 3%, like this. So that is the basic. Sorry, the DA. And the basic sometimes it is say 10,000, 20,000, like that. And the bonus sometimes it is 2,000, 5,000, like this. So typical values. So the gross is calculated as the basic plus this plus bonus. Okay. So now, so that's the case, and the thing is here in this case, this DA is basically same for all employees. Irrespective of his or her position, the DA is same. Okay, but the basic differs. Basic is different for different designations. And this bonus is not only same for all employees, but a fixed value. It's a fixed constant value. And this DA, it is same for all employees, and it is same for all employees, and that changes over time. So it is not constant. Okay, and this gross is a function of this basic, then DA, then bonus, and all this. And this is the function. Is that part clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Then how many member data I need to define, and what should be their types? I'm not talking about just int or float, but what kind of, so do I need to make it static or constant or a normal variable, whatever it is? Because I would like to apply the concepts of constant members, the concept of static members, static member data, and static member functions, and all this. So what will be the members here? What will be the members that we require? How many variables do you need in the salary class?
So four variables.
For basic, so we have to store the basic, because basic for each, so when I say class salary, so salary for every employee, there is a salary object that you would like to create, and that salary object will have a different basic value. So the basic should be different, and maybe the basic is float type. It's a normal variable kind. Then what about DA? How should I declare DA? DA is also float, but what should be the best way to define the DA? As you can see, the DA is a component which is same for all the employees and not a, and that also not constant. So how we should define DA? Earlier in our last class, we talked about static member data. What was the significance of that? Static member data is something that will be shared by all the instances of that class objects, right? So this DA, whatever it contains, the value of the DA will be shared by all the objects, right? Hello?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
what
sir.
should be the type of it? What is the best way to define this DA component? You may have the DA stored for all say for all objects. That is possible. But when you try to update the DA, you see you have to update it in all the existing instances of that, right? So that is not very efficient way of doing things. If I make DA something like this as it is right now, so this will not help us in this case. So if I make it static, so this DA is a data member which is of type static. Then what it means? It will have a copy of it in the data segment, and whatever instances of the salary object you create corresponding to a particular employee, say there are 5 employees, 5 salary objects will be created. So all the salary objects will be basically accessing the DA value, which is same for all employees irrespective of its designation. Is that part okay?
Yes, sir.
Then we have the bonus. So bonus is say like this bonus. So bonus, as I mentioned, it was same for all, but it's a fixed constant. So let it be, and bonus is generally in integer values like 2000, 5000, like that. It is sometimes connected to as a festival incentive provided during that October to December. So here, what should be the type of it? What do you prefer? What do you prefer for bonus?
The float.
No, int is fine, because as I mentioned, it will be generally not 2000 rupees and 50 paisa. It is not like that. It's either 2000, 10,000, 5,000, 1,000. So this int is fine, but I'm talking about this one. What should be the type of it? The best way to do this, it's a fixed constant, so we can tag it as constant, right? So bonus is constant, but you can have a bonus component separate for every salary object. Okay, and the nice thing is, and this is the same for all, I mean, in fact, it is not actually same for all. It varies from one employee to other. I mean, sometimes in higher designations you don't have any bonus. So generally for the officers or like faculties, they don't have any bonus, but for the other staff members, they have the bonus which is fixed. So bonus also, you cannot have a static value assigned for corresponding to it, a static variable, because sometimes you don't have a bonus for a certain grade and sometimes you have some bonus, so like that. So this is better, but the thing is, the bonus is a fixed thing. Find something like dummy is also int, and this is, let us assume that this is a reference type. So this is just to illustrate that how the reference type is initialized. So to have that shown, I have just included it. So now among these few, what do you think, which one should be made as public and which one should be as private? Which one is public, which one should be private? What do you prefer? Okay, another point that is missing is gross, right? The gross salary that you want to calculate. So the float gross, so that will be calculated using these parameters. So now what should be, which one should be private, which one should be public? What do you think? Tell me quickly, don't take so much of time.
Sir, except gross, everything should be private.
Do you think so? I think rather, I mean, we would prefer, because I do not want my gross to be revealed to others, right? That is generally that is followed, and probably my basic also, because basic Sometimes what happens when you get a promotion, so even though the basic is fixed to say 1,30,000 for that particular designation, sometimes because of your credentials and your maybe experience, you are offered with a higher basic. So your basic is fixed to say, for example, 1,40,000 instead of the initial basic for that designation 1,30,000. So such things are sort of incentive linked, and probably the organization or the employee himself is not willing to share it with others. But what is publicly known, you can always make it a public, because the DA is known to all. It's like the entire country, the central government employees, they enjoy a certain DA, which is hiked, as I mentioned, twice in a year. Bonus also, it is fine. You know that everybody is getting the bonus. So probably I would prefer to have, say, this as public, this as public. The dummy also you can make it public, but I would prefer to have this as private and this as private. So got my logic?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So next comes the interface. Interface means what are the methods that we should have. So what can be the methods, do you think? So one is the cell, the constructor and the destructor. Destructor is trivial here, but the constructor will be initializing the basic value, the DA and all this. Or I mean the DA is static, so you have to initialize it prior to creation of the objects. So we can set the bonus and basic in the constructor, and then there can be a cell calculate, which actually uses this formula to calculate the salary. And then we can have a DA hike, right? DA hike means, so you by calling, so whenever the government announces a increase in DA, then I just call this function which is going to update this value. So this function is going to update this static member, right? So this will be calculated by this cell calculate, and DA hike will be this. And definitely I would like to have some display function which will be displaying maybe all the component values and with some certain format. So this, and it say that it will give the entire breakup that your basic is this, your DA is this, your bonus is this, and the total salary is this much, right? So what do you think will be the type of these, like cell, the constructor, destructor, salary calculate, DA hike, and all this in terms of? So I'm not first asking you to identify which one will be private and public. Rather, my question is, what will be the type of the methods in terms of static, non-static, constant, non-constant? Hello? Can you recall what is meant by a static method? What is the significance of a static method? Hello?
So static method does not require an object to call it.
No, that is fine. That is how we call it. But what is the purpose of a static object, a static method? What it is meant for? You cannot invoke a static object, a static method via any object instance. That is true, right? So what is the purpose? So it is generally invoked using the class scope, but what is the purpose of that?
To update static variables,
To update
the
static
static data
variables.
numbers.
So the thing is, you see the DA hike, this is a commonly shared member which will be shared by all the instances of that class. So now whenever you are trying to update this, I would be calling probably DA hike. So DA hike should be, so you see, if the DA hike is a non-static normal method, what is going to happen? If this DA hike is going to be a non-static, a normal method as we write, so what will happen? You need an object for that to invoke that, and if you do so within that object, there is no point of, so I am trying to increase the DA which will be reflected to all the objects in the system, I mean in the salary class. So why should I invoke the method which actually does so via a specific object instance? That does not make sense, right? Are you getting my point? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I would prefer this DA high method, which will be whose sole purpose is to deal with the static members. This also to be static, because I mean, at least in this, for this example, this makes sense, right? Now salary calculate is not, so it has to deal with static and non-static members, all of them. So this will be as it's a normal method that we all know. It is a non-static type normal method. Now what about display function, the display method? So display method is meant for displaying the contents of a particular object of that class, salary class, right? So display method, can it be static? Do we need to make it static? Hello? Display is used to display the contents of the details of a particular salary object. So that means you need a salary object to invoke it, right? So do you need to make it static?
No, sir, because we need to make an object, so it will be.
Because I would like to display the information of that object, so it will be non-static. But can I make display some other? Can I add some other attribute to this display function? Can I make it constant? Can I make it constant? What is the purpose
Yes,
of a
sir.
constant? What is the purpose of a constant function or constant method? So a
So
constant method, hmm,
the constant method does not change the attributes of the object.
right? So so constant, if it is a constant variable, means you don't allow the runtime environment to modify or update that particular object. That particular variable, right? So that is what a constant entity means. Now, when you say it's a constant method or constant function, so a function constant means what? The contents of the function never changes, right? Nowhere we during execution the body of the function gets changed. That is not the intention, and that is not the case also. So a constantness of a function probably should imply that within the function you should not do any such things which are going to update the state of the object. What is meant by the state? Simply speaking, it should not attempt to update, modify any of the data members belonging to that object's identity. Is that fine?
Yes, sir.
So for that, we would like to tag it as constant. Okay. So once these are known, so I have defined a static method, I have defined a constant method, I have defined the non-static, non-constant methods as usual. I have got a constant member, I have got a static. So it has got a combination of various of the types of members that we can think of in a typical C++ class definition, right? So it tries to incorporate, and it makes sense also because of the problem that we have chosen, right? So now let us figure out that whether you prefer these constructor, destructor, calculate, high can display, what will be the access rights you would like to tag for each of these. Now tell me quickly, what do you prefer, public or private? So these two and so the salaries, they should be public. We all know the calculate, probably we would like to calculate it publicly. DA hike is also public. Sorry, display is also public, and DI is also public. DA hike is also public. Now you may decide to just have this salary calculated as private, and which will be called only through the display. That is up to you. So let us assume that for the timing, we assume that all the methods in this particular class are tagged as public. So we give a public interface. I mean, we reveal all these interfaces, all these functions outside. So it's they're tagged as public. So this is the outline of the code. I mean, this is the entire code. I'm not I thought of writing it and then showing it to you, but we don't have sufficient time. So let us just directly get into the code and see that how it. So you see, this is a salary class. Gross and basic, these are the private members, non-static, non-constant. This dummy is, as I mentioned, it's a constant integer that I have just tried to show that how a reference variable can be initialized. A static DA float, as we have decided, a bonus tagged as integer constant. We have got this as the constructor, this as a destructor, the salary calculate as a public float, a public method. This is a public static method, DA high. Sorry. So this is a void display. This is a normal public method, but it has been tagged as constant. Can you see this, the const keyword, where it is placed?
Yes, sir.
So as you can see here, if you are given the choice as a designer of the compiler that where should you place the const, can you figure out any other alternative uh, position to write the const keyword? If you would have written it here, you see, then it would have interpreted as the display returns a constant void or a constant int. That it means if you write it somewhere in between, you cannot write. So if you write it here, then also the same thing. It's like void constant. So the only place that is left is probably after the function name. So that's why I wrote it here. Okay, so that is the syntax. So this is to be noted. Okay, where should I place? Yes.
Sir, will you explain what the constant function does once? What does a constant function does?
So a function, a constant function means what? A function, a, a constant entity, a constant integer constant means what? Integer constant entity means you cannot change. You are not supposed to change the contents of that entity. So it remains constant throughout the compiler. But a function's body, do we ever change the body of the function, the contents of the function? Do we ever change? Whatever function we have written, after it has been compiled and during the execution, does the function body ever change?
No, sir.
This doesn't change. So then people will say that what is the meaning of, what is the interpretation of constantness of a function? So here the interpretation is the constantness of a function ensures that through that function, in the context of this class definition, through that method or through that class, through that function, which is a member of that class, you are not supposed to, and you should not, and you will not be able to modify any of these members of the function, any of the members of this class. So this function display is not going to and should not modify any of these members of this class. Maybe it is public or private, doesn't matter. None of the members should be updated while you call this function. So this function ensures the state of the object which has invoked it, that the state will remain unchanged. So any change in the value of, say, bonus or say gross or basic means the object, the identity of the object, it changes, right? So the identity, so the object's state gets changed. So that kind of change of the state of the object will not be done, will not be possible if you call display. So the displays, the body of the display is such that it cannot be done. And if you somehow mistakenly say here in this display function, if you somehow say we have got the gross, if I just write gross plus plus by mistake or by some means, if you write, this will simply give an error message. Although it is possible, like you can increment without, say, I mean, for no reason you can implement gross or decrement gross or increment basic, whatever. But because this display is labeled as a constant function or constant method, once you write this, the compiler will immediately provide an error message. Got the point?
Yes, sir.
So sometimes we require a safety measure, a safety check, that okay, if you call this, you are guaranteed that no change is going to take place. in the object's state. So generally from now on, whenever you write a display function, maybe it is a stack display or a queue display or whatever, we know that display is for display. So display should not attempt to change anything. And that probably does not make sense intuitively also. So it's better to tag it as constant. Now the point is, where should I put the constant keyword? If I put it here or here, it will be interpreting that the return type is constant, right? But I just want to mention that the function itself is constant. So there you have to write the const keyword here. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. So, but can we do it by passing a constant reference to the display function?
No, that you always can do. But even though you do that, you by mistake, even if you maybe you don't. So the object, so this is a normal function, this is a normal method. So that will be invoked by an object, right? It will be invoked by an object. So that
Yes.
object you cannot. So this pointer, so the address, see the point. So when you invoke this display, so display takes with it this object's address, right? So this
Yes, sir.
object's address is passed in such a way that the contents pointed by that address can be modified. But whenever you tag it as constant, it will pass the pointer this, or the address that is passed, or the value that is stored in the this pointer will be treated as constant.
Mhm.
Okay,
The
so the thing
constant
is,
pointer.
yeah, so if you simply write this asterisk this, that means the object, what it is, arrow gross plus plus, this will not be allowed. So this can point to the object's location, but through this you cannot modify any of the members of that object. So
Okay,
this
sir.
will treat, so it will treat the this as, how it will treat this, say this will be treated as, say, cell. Okay, so it will be considered as cell asterisk this. This is a normal this interpretation, right? But in this case it will be treated as
Constant, sir.
const cell. So writing here const means when this compiler translates it or modifies it, it will treat this as a constant. So like this, whatever it points to will be treated as constant. That it ensures. Got the point?
Yes, sir.
So now the rest of the things are very simple. So we have got the constructor here, and we have got a default argument. So the salary, the basic salary, we say that whoever is the employee, the basic salary should be at least 10,000, right? And the bonus will be 2,000, and the bonus, and this dummy is basically linked to bonus. So it has got a new name to the bonus, and that is how we interpret it. And then we assign the value of B, the basic value that you pass to basic and gross both. Okay. So now this destructor is for no use. It's just a I have inserted for completeness. Then salary calculate is gross plus equals to, because the gross is already assigned to basic. So if you recall the formula, it will be basic plus this. So basic is already there. So that's why I write gross plus equal to bonus plus basic into DA by 100. So that's a normal rule generally followed in practice in real life also. Okay. Then there's a DA high. So this DA high is written something like this. So DA high. So this DA plus equal to D, whatever you pass, and this displays a constant. So now once we have completed this, you see all the, I mean the methods has been declared. Then this is important because we have to now declare and initialize, if we want, the static method, the static member of the class. And here you see constant also need to be initialized. So constant we have initialized here. You see constant has been initialized in the constructor initializer list. This is called the constructor initializer list. Is that fine? So you see the constants are initialized in the constructor initializer list. The static members are declared here. So it's basically a declaration that DA, which is belongs to the salary class, is of type float. So you should allocate a space for a floating point variable in the data segment and initialize it to 4. The default value is 0. Is that okay?
Yes.
So this declare and initialize the static member data. Then you see, so I would like to write static this CEO. So CEO means what? No matter what the other employees are, say I declare a CEO object which is a static salary object, because the CEO should always be there in the company maybe. Okay, so its lifetime is throughout. And then this is S1 permanent, it's a permanent employee. This S2 is also permanent, but this one, you see, what is the significance of this? S temp, it's a salary object S temp which has been tagged as constant. So what is the significance of a constant object? Now I say that object is constant. What does it mean?
So the contents cannot be changed.
See,
Member variables.
earlier we meant that is a member data is constant. Then we say the member method can be constant. Now I say the object itself can be constant. So in fact, unfortunately, there are certain employees even in our institute also who are purely temporary ad hoc posts. So their job is not confirmed and they can be simply fired at any point of time. And there is no facility like DA hike and all this. So they are recruited based on some consolidated pay, a fixed value. So no matter how many years they work, I mean, they actually agree to those conditions. So if they work for 2 years, they will be paid every month. They will be paid that fixed value, no change in that value, no hikes, no bonus like that. So they are called temporary employees, and the term that is preferred, their salary is consolidated. So no change, nothing else. So here, so that's why we can, for those employees, we can tag it as a constant object. So even if you try to hike it, I mean, if you try to compute, so this computation does not hold for them, this gross. So this s.temp cannot invoke s.temp display is possible. You can see that values, and you see their default values will be there. So this I can pass consider 10,000. So a consolidated employee salary of an employee will be 10,000. And if you try to write something like stemp dot salary calculate, this will not work. This is not valid. Why? Because they are constant objects. So you cannot change. You cannot change anything of them. So once they are created, their basic and gross is fixed, and no matter how many years they work, they will work with that fixed salary. What the difference?
Yes, sir.
So now this DA hike, you see, now suddenly at some point of time the government announced the hike in the DA. So once we do this here, I write here cell, the class scope, DA hike, 3% DA hike. It was initially 4%, now it is 3%, and I think this time the DA is around 17%, 18%. And the government has announced that maybe from July onwards, because of COVID, so it was actually it was frozen for these few months, almost 1.5 years. Now they are planning to hike the DA. So once such hikes will come, so this will be triggered, and this 3% will be added to all the permanent employees, including the CEO, including all the permanent employees, but not the temporary employees, but because they are fixed. And if I write s2 permanent display, so if you display here and here, you will find that there is a change. So the hike will be reflected. And if you can display here also and CO display, so you will just, so no matter if it is a static object of that, you can display the salary of that particular
Excuse
person.
me, sir. Sir,
Yes.
sir, a couple of our classes have already started.
Okay, fine. I think I'm also done with this example. Okay. Let me stop the class. I'll forward the recording of this. Okay, I'm leaving.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.